Oso Mauniwiak, Ayanna O'Kimosh, Nuiswan, Mishik Nanawitan Yuki, Ane Akayan, Mamache Tau. Natotem Owasa Awe, Notne Jarrett O'Kimosh Awe, Mishik Nikia Michelle Bailey Awe, Keshena Initskiwikian. Hello, I'm Ayanna O'Kimosh. My Menominee name is Nanawitan Yuki, which means warrior woman. I'm a part of the Bear clan, and my parents are Jarrett O'Kimosh and Michelle Bailey. I am an enrolled member of the Oneida Nation and a descendant of the Menominee and Arikara Nations. I'm an amateur boxer fighting out of the Menominee Indian Boxing Club in Keshena, Wisconsin. I am a daughter, granddaughter, sister, aunt, niece, and friend. I'm a softball player, and some of the positions I play are pitcher and catcher. I represent many things to many people, and I am most proud of my role as an advocate for change. I am a youth advocate who's passionate about promoting all aspects of health and wellness through my journey in boxing, contributing to the missing and murdered Indigenous women movement where I'm able, and promoting empowerment among women and girls. On most days, you can find me listening to music, painting, making jewelry, reading books, working out and training, spending time with my family, or studying. Studying and researching so that I can do my part to bring more light to the subject of missing and murdered Indigenous women, changing the narrative for myself and future generations to come, and doing all that I can to support and bring awareness to the issues I push myself to speak upon. My passion comes from the experiences that I've had thus far in my life, as well as my drive to make change for my people. My path and motivation comes from a quote by Muhammad Ali, one of my favorite boxers. We can't be brave without fear. So today, I would like to share my journey and how I have been learning to conquer fear so that I can be brave in many different aspects of my life. Brave enough to challenge myself in ways such as competing in national tournaments and engaging in this amazing opportunity with all of you. My journey with advocacy began when I was a 4-year-old tagging along with my mom and dad to community events such as the annual Domestic Violence Awareness Walk held in October. Little did I know that that's when my training began to become an advocate for change and an athlete by joining and trying out a new sport, which was boxing. I started boxing when I was 9, almost 10 years old. Originally, I was really curious about boxing because I always watched the sport with my dad, and it looked like a very intense sport that requires a lot of work to be good at. I had always wondered what one of the buildings was in my hometown and soon found out it was a boxing gym, and I wanted to try the sport out. When I asked my mom and dad, they at first said no, until I constantly nagged and asked them about it for probably over a month, till they finally gave in and said that I could box. As I started training, I began to realize how much work was actually put into the sport, from eating healthy to running every day and training so that your entire body from head to toe is strong. Before that, I never knew how much work each and every one of those boxers that I idolized put into the sport. A few months of training went by and I began to get really bad pains in my left shoulder, and after getting it checked out, we discovered that I had a series of tears in my shoulder. And I was then out of the gym and couldn't box for over a month. After I pushed hard to recover from the injury, I had to push even harder to get back in shape and get to where my shoulder was prior to the injury. Soon after getting back into the gym, I began to spar with the boys there who had way more experience than me in boxing, and I was honestly so scared to spar them. So each time I would get in the ring, I would spar, and after I was done, I would find that I'd cry every single time for no apparent reason. I was never hurt, I just would cry. It's embarrassing to look back at now because I've grown so much in boxing that it's crazy that I would react this way because I was scared. After I was back in the gym for a little over a month again, my coach and dad set up a fight for me at the Junior Olympic State Tournament. It was my first fight, and even though it was over 3 years ago, I can still remember how I felt when I was walking up the steps to that ring as I was being waved up by the referee. I felt like I was going to throw up and like I wanted to pass out of fear. I was so scared because the girl I was fighting had 4 fights and 3 of the 4 were technical knockouts. A technical knockout is when the referee or corner stops the fight because the other cannot continue. But as I got into the ring and started the fight, I found myself not nervous at all, and this is the same feeling I continue to get each and every time I fought. That nervous feeling was always there. I ended up winning that fight and going on to beat the girl once again in my hometown. But after that, I continued to fight and get a few more state and regional titles until I finally made it to my first national tournament in Independence, Missouri. Again, I felt the same nervous feeling as I won each fight I had there, all the way up to the finals. I fought and gave my all during the last fight for the championship, but ended up just a hair short of the win. But that didn't stop me. It just gave me more motivation to work harder in the boxing gym, and after that loss, I continued to gather up fights and finally made it to my second national tournament. A month prior to the tournament, I got injured once again. I was so bummed out because I thought that I wasn't going to be healed in time for nationals. But with the help of physical therapy, I was able to push my way through the injury again and was excited to find out that I was able to go to the nationals. As I fought there in Lake Charles, Louisiana, I did the same as my first national tournament and won every match and gave all that I had in each and every second and each and every round of those fights, all the way up to the title fight. I was so determined to win this match and make up for my loss at the Silver Gloves earlier that year. Again, giving everything I had, I won that title fight and now I gained my first national championship. By pushing through the hardships I've faced during my time boxing, I've learned that one of the most important things to have in the sport is not the state or national title, but rather the courage to push through the fear that you experience. Also, having the ability to reach for the goals you set for yourself is very important because, believe it or not, you can achieve anything. It just depends on how bad you want it and how hard you'll work for it. But boxing isn't always a climbing mountain of achievements. Just like any other sport, there are many ups and downs. From my experience, I've noticed myself struggling to find motivation, especially recently and during the pandemic, as well as isolation, which was a very hard time for me and a lot of other people. But through this, I've learned to push myself harder to get through these things in my life, and I just started to get back to boxing after taking the time I've needed to focus on myself, as well as focusing on my own mental wellness. Also, in these past 4 years of boxing, I've learned that your own health and mental and physical state is a key aspect in how you train and how you perform. Whether it's pushing yourself to work out on those days that you don't want to, or calming your nerves before a match. I've also come to know that boxing can help maintain wellness too by boosting your mental well-being with the positive self-talk you give yourself to calm the anxious or fearful feelings you feel before a fight. Boxing not only benefits you mentally, but also physically by keeping you active, and it keeps your body in shape. It also helps build your confidence in yourself, as well as teaching you key traits of determination and resiliency, or to always pick yourself back up again. This relates to a quote I like very much by past Packers football coach Vince Lombardi. It does not matter how many times you get knocked down, but how many times you get back up. In this past year especially, I've learned that focusing on your own health and well-being is very important. Now ask yourself, in the past year, what have you done to take care of yourself? Today, what can you do to better take care of you? Some things I've done that have worked for me are exercising, like just finding a simple workout to better your physical health, training, doing yoga and meditation, painting, reading books, making crafts and jewelry to relieve built-up stress, listening to music, and when I need it, asking for help from others, whether it's from a parent or a guardian, a friend, a family member, or a trusted adult. This is very important because it may help you if you find some way to take care of you and to release any stress or emotion that you have built up. This can help to get you motivated to do the things you love after losing motivation. It's very important to push yourself to work on you, whether it's mentally, physically, or both. This is a key thing that you should always do and remember to do when you feel this way. From this experience in the pandemic, I've also taken the opportunity to learn more about MMIW, and shortly before that, the issue of MMIW was brought to my attention. When I decided I wanted to use my platform with boxing to bring awareness to the missing and murdered Indigenous women MMIW epidemic. In December of 2019, I was attending the USA Boxing Nationals in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I pledged to fight for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. I wanted to fight for them and to change the narrative for future generations. A fight to be more than just a statistic, more than a national projection, or to be more than just labeled as something else. A series of photos at the event were taken to symbolize my support for the cause. In one photo, I am in a ribbon skirt made by my mom to honor MMIWG, a red handprint across my mouth standing by Lake Charles, and another photo with a black handprint across my face, symbolizing that I was war ready. A red hand over the mouth has become the symbol of a growing movement, the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, MMIW movement. It stands for all the missing sisters whose voices are not heard. It stands for the silence of the media and law enforcement in the midst of this crisis. It stands for the oppression and subjugation of Native women who are now rising up to say, "No more stolen sisters." Did you know that Native women face murder rates more than 10 times the national average on some reservations and our countries? In a recent study by National Institute for Justice, shared that more than 4 in 5 American Indian and Alaskan Native men and women have experienced some kind of violence in their lifetime, and more than 1 in 3 experienced some kind of violence in the past year. More than half, 56.1% of Native women and girls will experience sexual violence in their lifetime. Federal agencies report 1 in 3 will be raped. More than half, 55.5% of Native women have experienced physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. Native women are still being targeted nationwide to this day. Nearly half, 48.8% of Native women have been stalked in their lifetime. Did you know that these disappearances and/or murders are often connected to domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, and sex trafficking? And the intersection of gender-based violence and MMIWG is heavily intertwined. But these are only reported statistics. Many victims do not report for various reasons, such as lack of support, lack of accountability, and no faith in the justice system. I think even the unreported statistics signify a national crisis. There's a lack of consequences for violent crimes committed against Native American women. This may make them feel as though the justice system is not going to hold the perpetrators accountable when a crime against a Native woman occurs. Another way that these victims of these crimes are let down is by the insufficient resources available to them or their families, and the lack of clarity on jurisdiction or who is responsible for responding to the reports of missing women and girls. In my knowledge search, I read that Native women go missing 3 times, physically, in the data, and in the media. In the data, because a lot of these missing women reports are not being recorded or reported to the national systems. In the media, because the media just does not cover the epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women, or all of the missing and murdered Indigenous women throughout the United States and Canada. According to the National Crime Information Center report in 2016, there were 5,712 reports of missing American Indian and Alaska Native women and girls. Although the U.S. Department of Justice's Federal Missing Person Database, NamUs, only logged 116 cases, it is very important to understand the connection between domestic, dating, and sexual violence and the high incidence of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, MMIWG, in the United States. This long-standing crisis of MMIWG can be attributed to the historical and intergenerational trauma caused by colonization and its ongoing effects in Indigenous communities, stretching back more than 500 years. If you are interested in learning more about this history, or to learn more about the many layers of MMIW and its relationship to resource extraction and pipelines, links to additional resources will be shared to gain more knowledge, since I only have a short period of time to share with you today. Some of the things that I have done to bring awareness include sharing and educating where I can, and some of the ways that I do this is by sharing alert and missing posters on my Facebook and Instagram accounts. I also had the pleasure to present to my class at school on the MMIW issue. I continued to challenge myself to learn more about the MMIW issue by researching, learning more from survivors, advocates, and families of victims. Some goals moving forward are to focus on prevention by sharing with my target age group through offering self-defense class, creating prevention materials for peers in other age groups on how to stay safe with technology, and making healthy choices. Some of my contributions include fundraising for organizations and grassroots groups who are doing the frontline work, such as fundraisers for families searching for their loved ones, emergency assistance, and funds to support homeless and victims fleeing abusive relationships. These are some of the ways that I have pushed myself out of my comfort zone and challenged myself to pursue what I believe in. I know in my heart that all of you have dreams, and sometimes we don't pursue them because they may seem scary, or we just don't know what to do or where to start. I was lucky enough and so thankful to have my parents, family, boxing coaches, trainers, promoters, community, and women professional boxers push me and support me in my dreams and goals. One person who especially pushed me and now has chosen me to be her little sister is Kaylee Reese, current World Boxing Association and International Boxing Organization super lightweight world champion. Support is such a great way to empower others. So, in closing, I'm challenging you to take a deep breath, relax, and search your heart and think of your biggest goals and dreams. I'm challenging you to step outside of your comfort zone and go after those goals and dreams. I'm challenging you to not worry about society's norms and do something you've always dreamed of doing. I'm challenging you to be the strongest woman that you can be and to lift up and support all other women. I'm challenging you to be what I know you can be. Amazing. Matchway Manon, thank you very much.